The blood-red sun hung low on the horizon as Lily Vaughn clutched her feverish daughter against her chest, desperation etched across her face. The stagecoach had abandoned them in San Elizario, Texas, after her husband's lifeless body was lowered into the hard, unforgiving desert soil 3 days prior. Now, as she stood on the dusty main street with her belongings scattered around her and her 5-year-old daughter burning with fever, Lily knew that fate had dealt her the cruelest hand possible. San Elizario in 1875 was hardly more than a dusty outpost along the Rio Grande, with a small cluster of adobe buildings, a general store, and a saloon that seemed to be the only structure thriving in this barren landscape. The town had once boasted a doctor, but he'd packed up and headed to El Paso months ago, leaving the townspeople to fend for themselves when illness or injury struck. "Please," Lily begged, approaching a stern-faced woman sweeping the boardwalk in front of the general store. "My daughter's burning with fever. Is there a doctor here?" The woman paused her sweeping and looked down at little Emma's flushed face. "No doctor for 50 miles, madam. Old Doc Peters left for El Paso last winter." Lily felt her knees weaken. She had spent the last of her money on the stagecoach fare, believing they could start fresh in El Paso where her cousin lived. But then James had taken ill on the journey, dying from what the stagecoach driver had called trail fever, and now Emma had fallen victim to the same sickness. "Is there anyone who might help?" Lily's voice cracked as she struggled to hold back tears. "Anyone with medical knowledge?" The woman's face softened slightly. "There's a room above the general store that Mr. Wilson sometimes rents out. He might let you stay there while you figure things out." "As for your girl," she hesitated. "Some folks say that Lucas Jensen up at the Broken Spur knows about healing herbs and such. Indian ways, they say, but he's a solitary sort, doesn't come to town much." A man's voice cut through the conversation. "Sarah, you filling that poor woman's head with tales about Jensen?" A portly man with a gray mustache approached from inside the store. "Madam, I'm Harold Wilson. I own this establishment. The room upstairs is yours if you need it, no charge for the first night." Relief flooded through Lily. "Thank you, Mr. Wilson. I don't know how I can repay your kindness." "No need for that now. Let's get you and your little one settled." He gestured toward the door. "Sarah, fetch some cool water and clean cloths." Within minutes, Lily found herself in a small but clean room above the store. Emma whimpered as Lily laid her on the narrow bed, her small body radiating heat like a blacksmith's forge. Sarah returned with water, cloths, and a sympathetic expression. "I've sent young Billy Tanner out to the Broken Spur. If Jensen's there, he'll come or he won't. That's just his way." As the sun dipped below the horizon and darkness enveloped the town, Lily sat beside her daughter, replacing the cool cloths on her forehead as they quickly warmed from Emma's fever. The child's breathing had grown labored, and Lily felt a mounting panic that threatened to overwhelm her. She must have dozed off because a knock at the door startled her awake. The room was dark except for the faint glow of a lamp she'd left burning low. "Mrs. Vaughn," a deep voice called from the other side of the door. Lily rose and opened it, finding herself face to face with a tall man whose features were partially hidden by the shadow cast by his hat. His clothes were trail-worn but clean denim pants, a faded blue shirt, and a leather vest. A gun belt hung from his lean hips. "I'm Lucas Jensen," he said simply. "Billy Tanner rode out to tell me about your girl." Lily stepped back, allowing him to enter. "She's burning with fever, Mr. Jensen, the same fever that took my husband 3 days ago." Lucas removed his hat, revealing dark hair that curled slightly at the ends and eyes the color of a summer storm gray with hints of blue. A scar ran from his right temple to his cheekbone, and his sun-weathered face suggested he'd spent most of his 30-some years outdoors. He moved to Emma's bedside with a surprising gentleness for a man his size. From a leather satchel, he produced several small pouches and a metal cup. "How long has she been like this?" he asked, his voice low and measured as he placed a calloused hand on Emma's forehead. "The fever started yesterday morning. She was fine when we arrived, but by nightfall." Lily's voice broke. Lucas nodded, his expression grave but composed. I need to make a tea. Do you have a way to boil water? Lily pointed to a small stove in the corner of the room. Mr. Wilson brought up some kindling and a kettle. Without another word, Lucas set to work. He built a small fire in the stove and filled the kettle with water from a pitcher. As he waited for it to boil, he measured out various dried plants from his pouches, crushing some between his fingers and adding them to the metal cup. "What is that?" Lily asked, watching his methodical movements. "Willow bark for the fever, elderberry to fight the sickness, and a few other things the Comanche taught me." He glanced at her, noting her surprise. "I was taken by them as a boy, lived with them for 7 years before I found my way back to this life." When the water boiled, he carefully poured it over the herbs and covered the cup with a small plate. "It needs to steep," he explained. Returning to Emma's bedside, he gently lifted the child, supporting her small head with his hand. "She's mighty sick, Mrs. Vaughn, I won't lie to you about that. But children have a way of fighting that grown men sometimes lack." Lily felt tears welling in her eyes. "She's all I have left in this world, Mr. Jensen." Lucas met her gaze steadily. "Then we'll fight for her together." He checked the tea, then strained it through a clean cloth into another cup. After testing its temperature with a fingertip, he carefully brought it to Emma's lips. "Emma, sweetheart," Lily coaxed, stroking her daughter's hair, "you need to drink this medicine." The child stirred, her eyes fluttering open for a moment before closing again, but she managed a few small sips before turning her head away. "That's good for now," Lucas said. "We'll try again soon." He stood and rolled up his sleeves, revealing forearms corded with muscle. "Mrs. Vaughn, you look exhausted. When did you last sleep properly?" Lily couldn't remember. The days since James's death had blurred together in a haze of grief and worry. "I'm fine," she insisted. "You won't do your daughter any good if you collapse," Lucas said firmly. "Rest, I will tend you both." Something in his steady gaze made Lily believe him a quiet strength that seemed to fill the room. For the first time since James had fallen ill, she felt a glimmer of hope. "Thank you," she whispered, settling into the chair beside the bed. Lucas nodded once, then set about making another poultice for Emma's chest. As he worked, Lily watched his hands strong but gentle as they tended to her daughter. Whatever his past, whatever had brought him to this lonely existence, Lucas Jensen was a man who knew about healing. And right now, that was all that mattered. The night stretched long before them, marked by the rhythmic sound of Emma's labored breathing and the occasional crackle from the stove. Every hour, Lucas prepared fresh herb tea and coaxed a few sips into Emma. He replaced the poultice on her chest and the cool cloths on her forehead with quiet efficiency. Near dawn, Emma's fever seemed to break slightly. Her breathing eased and her skin felt less scorching to the touch. Lily, who had dozed fitfully in the chair, awoke to find Lucas standing by the window, his profile outlined by the first gray light of morning. "Mr. Jensen," she called softly. He turned, his expression unreadable. "Her fever's down some, not broken completely, but it's a good sign." Relief washed over Lily. "Thank God. You should eat something," he said, nodding toward a small bundle on the table that hadn't been there before. "Sarah from the store brought up some bread and preserves while you were sleeping." As if on cue, Lily's stomach growled. She hadn't eaten since the previous morning. "Will you join me?" A hint of a smile touched his lips. "Already ate, madam, but thank you." She unwrapped the bundle and broke off a piece of bread, spreading it with apple preserves. As she ate, she studied Lucas more carefully. In the growing light, she could see that he was younger than she'd initially thought, perhaps 30 or 31, not much older than her 28 years. Despite the hardness of his features, there was something in his eyes that spoke of kindness. "Why do you live alone, Mr. Jensen?" The question slipped out before she could stop herself. He stiffened slightly. "Prefer it that way? I'm sorry, that was forward of me." Lily looked down at her bread, embarrassed. Lucas sighed. "No, I'm the one who should apologize. You've had a hard journey and I've no call to be short with you." He ran a hand through his dark hair. "Truth is, people tend to look at me sideways on account of my time with the Comanche. Easier to keep to myself." "That seems unfair," Lily said quietly. "Especially when you have such valuable knowledge," he shrugged. "World's seldom fair, Mrs. Vaughn," his gaze shifted to Emma. "But your little girl deserves a fair chance, and I aim to see she gets it." Throughout that day, Lucas remained by Emma's bedside, brewing more herbal remedies and tending to her with unwavering attention. Lily took the opportunity to wash herself and change into a clean dress, feeling somewhat human again despite her exhaustion. By evening, Emma was conscious enough to take broth that Sarah had brought up from the kitchen behind the store. Her fever remained, but its ferocity had diminished. "Mama." Emma's voice was weak but clear as her eyes found Lily's face. "I'm right here, sweetheart," Lily said, choking back tears of relief. "I had dreams about angels," Emma murmured, "and a bear that wasn't scary." Lily smiled through her tears. "That sounds like a lovely dream." Emma's gaze drifted to Lucas, who stood a respectful distance away. "Are you the bear from my dream?" she asked with childish directness. A genuine smile transformed Lucas's face, softening the hard planes and making him suddenly, startlingly handsome. "No, little miss, I'm just a friend who knows about plants that help when folks are sick." "Like magic," Emma said seriously before her eyes fluttered closed again, this time in natural sleep rather than feverish unconsciousness. Lucas turned to Lily. "She'll sleep now, real sleep, which is what she needs most. The fever's not done with her yet, but she's fighting it well." "I don't know how to thank you," Lily said, her voice thick with emotion. "No need for thanks. I'll come back tomorrow with more herbs." He gathered his satchel and placed his hat on his head. "Keep giving her the tea every few hours and get some proper rest yourself." Before Lily could protest, he was gone, his footsteps receding down the stairs. Through the window, she watched him mount a sturdy buckskin horse and ride out of town, his straight-backed figure gradually disappearing into the gathering dusk. True to his word, Lucas returned the next morning with fresh herbs and more supplies. Emma was awake and alert, though still weak. Her fever had diminished to a slight warmth rather than the dangerous heat of before. "You came back," Emma said, smiling at Lucas. "Said I would, didn't I?" He set his satchel on the table and produced a small wooden figure, a horse carved with surprising detail. "Thought you might like this. Gets boring being stuck in bed." Emma's face lit up as she accepted the gift. "Thank you. He looks just like your horse." "That he does," Lucas agreed. "His name's Thunder. What will you call yours?" Emma studied the carving seriously. "Starlight," she decided. Lucas nodded solemnly. "Fine name for a fine horse." As he prepared a fresh batch of herbs, Lily observed the gentle way he interacted with Emma. There was none of the awkwardness some men displayed around children. Instead, he spoke to her as if she were simply a smaller person, deserving of the same respect as anyone else. "Mr. Jensen," Lily began as he worked, "I must ask about payment. I have little money, but perhaps I could work to repay you somehow." Lucas focused on grinding herbs with a small stone mortar and pestle he had brought. "No payment needed, Mrs. Vaughn. I insist," she pressed. "I won't be indebted." He looked up then, his gray-blue eyes meeting hers directly. "Then consider it an exchange. Your daughter's smile is payment enough." Lily felt a flush creep up her neck at the intensity of his gaze. "That hardly seems fair." "As I said yesterday, the world seldom is." He returned to his task. "But if it eases your mind, you can send some baked goods out to my place once you're settled. Been a while since I had a proper pie." The matter-of-fact way he said it made Lily smile. "I make an excellent apple pie. Then we have a deal." He poured hot water over the herbs. "Though I suspect it will be a while before you're baking, you need to think about what comes next, Mrs. Vaughn." The question sobered her immediately. What did come next? Her plan had been to reach El Paso and her cousin Martha, but with no money for stagecoach fare and a recovering child, that journey now seemed impossible. "I don't know," she admitted. "We were headed to El Paso, to my cousin's home, but now—" She trailed off, the enormity of her situation overwhelming her. Lucas nodded thoughtfully. "San Elizario's not much, but it's a decent place. Wilson mentioned the school's looking for a teacher come fall. Previous one married and moved to Albuquerque." Hope flickered in Lily's chest. Before her marriage, she had taught at a small school in Missouri. It was a skill she could use. "Do you think they would consider me?" Can't see why not. Town council's always complaining about how hard it is to get educated folks out here. He handed her the cup of tea. For Emma. And there's another for you, different blend to help with strength. Their fingers brushed as she took the cups, and Lily felt an unexpected jolt at the contact. She quickly attributed it to gratitude and exhaustion, nothing more. Over the next 3 days, Emma's condition improved steadily under Lucas's care. Color returned to her cheeks and her appetite grew stronger. By the 4th day, she was sitting up in bed, playing with the wooden horse and chattering happily. During this time, Lily learned bits and pieces about Lucas Jensen. He had a small ranch, the Broken Spur, about 5 miles outside of town. He raised horses rather than cattle, specializing in breeding strong, sure-footed animals suited to the harsh desert terrain. He lived alone save for an elderly Mexican man named Manuel who helped with the horses and kept house. Lucas, in turn, learned about Lily, how she had grown up in St. Louis, the daughter of a bookstore owner who had ensured she received a proper education. How she had met James Vaughn when he came to buy books for his medical practice, and how they had married quickly, perhaps too quickly, swept up in the romance of it all. He wanted to start fresh somewhere new, Lily explained on the 5th evening as they sat by the open window, enjoying the cool night air while Emma slept peacefully. His practice in Missouri wasn't thriving, and he heard there were opportunities in the West. Lucas listened quietly, his face thoughtful in the lamplight. "It takes a certain kind of person to thrive out here," he said finally. "Not everyone can bend without breaking in this land." "Am I the kind who will break, do you think?" Lily asked softly. His eyes met hers, steady and appraising. "No, Mrs. Vaughn, I think you're the kind who bends and grows stronger for it." Something in his voice, in the way he looked at her, made Lily's heart beat faster. She turned her face toward the window, trying to compose herself. It was inappropriate to feel this way so soon after James's death, inappropriate to feel anything for this quiet, enigmatic man who had saved her daughter's life. "I should go," Lucas said, rising from his chair. "Emma's well on the mend now. She likely won't need more than one more dose of the tea tomorrow morning. Will you come back?" The question escaped before Lily could stop herself. Lucas paused, hat in hand. "If you wish it." "Emma would be disappointed not to say a proper goodbye," Lily said quickly, giving a reason that wasn't the truth, or at least not the whole truth. "Then I'll return tomorrow afternoon." He settled his hat on his head and moved toward the door. "Good night, Mrs. Vaughn." "Lily," she said suddenly. "Please call me Lily." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Good night, Lily." After he left, Lily stood by the window for a long time, watching the stars and trying to make sense of the jumbled emotions inside her. Grief for James was still there, but it had somehow transformed in the past week. The desperate, clawing pain had given way to a softer sadness, a recognition that what they'd had was already slipping away before his death. James had been a good man in many ways, but his dreams had always seemed just out of reach, leading them from one disappointment to another. And now there was Lucas Jensen, a man as different from James as the desert was from the lush Missouri countryside. A man of few words but decisive actions. A man who had asked for nothing but had given everything when it mattered most. The next morning, Mr. Wilson came up to check on them, bringing news that made Lily's heart leap with hope. "Spoke to the town council about you, Mrs. Vaughn," he said, beaming proudly. "They're mighty interested in meeting you about the teaching position. School doesn't start till September, but they're willing to hire you now if you're qualified, with pay starting immediately." "That's wonderful news," Lily said, grateful tears springing to her eyes. "Thank you, Mr. Wilson." "Don't thank me, it was Jensen's idea." Wilson winked at Emma, who was sitting up in bed playing with her wooden horse. "Looking better, little miss. That Jensen sure knows his herbs." After Wilson left, Lily busied herself with washing Emma's face and brushing her hair, all while explaining about the possibility of staying in San Elizario. "Would we live in this room?" Emma asked, looking around at the small space. "No, sweetheart. The teachers' quarters are attached to the schoolhouse. Mr. Wilson says it's a small house, but it has 2 proper rooms and a kitchen." Emma nodded solemnly. Will Mr. Lucas visit us there? The innocent question gave Lily pause. I don't know, Emma. Mr. Jensen lives outside of town and keeps to himself mostly. But he's our friend, Emma insisted with a child's simple logic. Friends visit each other, Lily smoothed her daughter's hair. Yes, they do, we'll just have to see what happens. As promised, Lucas arrived that afternoon. Emma was out of bed for the first time, sitting in a chair by the window with a blanket around her shoulders. Her face lit up when he entered. Mr. Lucas, I'm better, she announced proudly. I can see that, he said, the corners of his eyes crinkling in a smile, sitting up and everything. Mama says we might stay here, she's going to be a teacher. Lucas glanced at Lily, who nodded. Mr. Wilson spoke to the town council this morning. They want to meet with me tomorrow. That's good news. He set his satchel on the table, brought some strengthening tea for Emma. 1 cup a day for the next week should see her fully recovered. Thank you, Lily said sincerely. For everything, he nodded, seeming uncomfortable with her gratitude, just doing what needed doing. Emma looked between them with a child's perceptiveness. Mama, can Mr. Lucas stay for supper? Sarah brought up stew and there's plenty. Lucas opened his mouth to decline, but Lily spoke first. Please stay if you have time, it's the least we can do. After a moment's hesitation, he nodded. I'd be obliged. The simple meal became one of the most pleasant evenings Lily could remember. Emma chattered happily about the wooden horse and asked Lucas endless questions about real horses, which he answered with surprising patience. As the evening progressed, Lily noticed Lucas gradually relaxing, his normally guarded expression softening. Do all your horses have names? Emma asked as she finished her stew. Every one, Lucas confirmed. Can't work with an animal properly if you don't know its name. How many do you have? 23 at present. 15 mares, 7 geldings, and 1 stallion Thunder who you saw. That's a lot of horses, Emma said, impressed. It is indeed, Lucas glanced at Lily. Your mama mentioned you lived in a town before. Ever been around horses much? Emma shook her head. Papa said they were too expensive to keep in town, but I rode on the stagecoach horses. Lucas smiled. That's not quite the same thing. Stagecoach horses are working too hard to make friends. Ranch horses now, they've got time for friendships. Could I meet your horses someday? Emma asked hopefully. Lucas hesitated, glancing at Lily. That would be up to your mama. Perhaps when you're fully recovered, Lily said, not wanting to disappoint her daughter but also aware of the impropriety of visiting a single man's ranch. I should be going, Lucas said, rising from the table. It's getting late. At the door, while Emma was distracted with her wooden horse, Lily spoke quietly. Thank you again, Mr. Jensen, not just for Emma's life, but for suggesting me to Mr. Wilson for the teaching position. Lucas, he corrected gently, and you're welcome, though I did little enough. This town needs a proper teacher. Still, I'm grateful. Lily hesitated, then added, if the position works out, perhaps you could show us both the broken spur someday. Emma would love to see the horses, and I would like to see where the man who saved my daughter lives. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, perhaps, or something deeper. I'd like that, he said simply. After he left, Lily helped Emma prepare for bed, her mind filled with confusing thoughts. It had been only a week since James's death, yet it felt like a lifetime ago. Was it wrong to feel this pull toward another man so soon? Was it merely gratitude or something more? She pushed these thoughts aside as she tucked Emma into bed. Sleep well, my brave girl. Mama, Emma said sleepily, I like Mr. Lucas. He has sad eyes but a kind smile. Out of the mouths of babes, Lily thought. Yes, he does. Now sleep. The following day, Lily met with the town council, a group of 5 men who asked pointed questions about her education and teaching experience. By the end of the meeting, she had been hired as San Elizario's new school teacher, with a salary that, while modest, would allow her and Emma to live independently. The schoolhouse needs some attention, explained Mayor Thornton, a portly man with impressive whiskers. Been empty since Miss Lawson left in the spring. You and your daughter can move into the living quarters next week, after we've had a chance to clean it properly. Thank you, gentlemen, Lily said, fighting back tears of relief. I won't disappoint you. As she and Emma walked back to the general store, Lily's heart felt lighter than it had in months, perhaps years. San Elizario wasn't what she had planned, but it offered something she had begun to think impossible: a fresh start and independence. Over the next few days, Lily busied herself with preparations for their move to the schoolhouse. Emma regained her strength rapidly, soon able to explore the general store and make friends with Sarah's grandchildren who lived nearby. Lucas did not return to town, and Lily tried to ignore the disappointment she felt. He had done more than enough already, she told herself. There was no reason for him to continue visiting now that Emma was recovered. But on the day before they were to move into the schoolhouse, Lucas arrived at the general store just as Lily was helping Mr. Wilson arrange goods on the shelves, her way of repaying him for his kindness. "Mrs. Vaughn," Lucas said, removing his hat as he entered. "Mr. Wilson, Jensen." Wilson greeted him jovially. "Rare to see you twice in a fortnight. What brings you to town? Need some supplies." Lucas's eyes moved to Lily. "And I thought I might offer my wagon to help Mrs. Vaughn move her things tomorrow. Heard from the mayor that the schoolhouse is ready." Lily felt her cheeks warm under his gaze. "That's very kind of you, Mr. Jensen. We don't have much to move, but I would appreciate the help." "It's settled then," Lucas said. "I'll come by around 9 if that suits." "Perfectly," Lily replied, aware of Mr. Wilson's curious glance between them. After purchasing supplies, Lucas asked about Emma and seemed pleased to hear she was fully recovered and playing with friends. Before leaving, he paused at the door. "Mrs. Vaughn, I was thinking that if you and Emma wanted to see the broken spur, this Sunday might be a good day. I could bring the wagon into town after church." The invitation, delivered in Lucas's straightforward manner, brought a smile to Lily's face. "That would be lovely. Emma will be thrilled." When Lucas had gone, Mr. Wilson chuckled softly. Well, never thought I'd see the day when Lucas Jensen willingly invited company out to his place." Lily busied herself with straightening a display of canned goods. "He's simply being kind because of Emma's interest in horses." "If you say so," Wilson replied, his tone suggesting he thought otherwise. "Jensen's a good man, despite what some folks say about his past. Keeps to himself, but always fair in his dealings." "What exactly do people say about his past?" Lily asked, unable to contain her curiosity. Wilson shrugged. "Just that living with the Comanche changed him. He was just a boy when they took him 12 or 13. By the time he found his way back to white society, he was a grown man who'd forgotten much of his previous life. His parents were long dead, and the only family he had left was an uncle who helped him establish the ranch." "That must have been difficult," Lily murmured, thinking of the quiet strength she had observed in Lucas. "Indeed, some folks don't trust him because of it, say he's more Indian than white." Wilson shook his head disapprovingly. "Nonsense, of course, but people fear what they don't understand." The next morning, true to his word, Lucas arrived with his wagon. The loading went quickly, as Lily and Emma had few possessions. The schoolhouse, when they arrived, was a simple one-room building with an attached living quarters consisting of 2 small bedrooms and a kitchen. Everything had been freshly cleaned, and someone had left a vase of wildflowers on the kitchen table. "It's perfect," Lily declared, watching Emma run excitedly from room to room. Lucas carried in their trunks and the few pieces of furniture that Mr. Wilson had given them: a small table, 3 chairs, and a rocking chair that had belonged to Sarah's mother. "Need anything fixed before I go?" Lucas asked, looking around the small house. "I think everything is in order," Lily said. "Thank you for your help." Lucas nodded and turned to leave, but Emma caught his hand. "You'll still come on Sunday to take us to see the horses, won't you?" His weathered face softened. "I gave my word, didn't I? I'll be here after church." Sunday couldn't come fast enough for Emma, who talked constantly about the upcoming visit to the broken spur. Lily found herself equally eager, though for different reasons. She had attended church that morning, her first public appearance as the new teacher, and had been warmly welcomed by most of the townspeople, though she had noticed a few curious glances when Lucas had approached her after the service to confirm their plans. After a simple midday meal, Lily dressed Emma in her best dress and carefully arranged her own hair, telling herself that it was simply proper to look presentable when visiting someone's home, and that it had nothing to do with the way her pulse quickened when Lucas smiled. His wagon arrived precisely when promised, and Emma rushed out to greet him with unrestrained enthusiasm. Lily followed at a more sedate pace, nodding politely to neighbors who watched from their porches. The ride to the Broken Spur took about an hour, during which Emma peppered Lucas with questions about everything they passed. His patience never wavered as he pointed out various plants and animals, explaining their names and uses in a way that held the child's attention completely. As they crested a small rise, the Broken Spur came into view, a modest ranch nestled in a shallow valley. A sturdy log house stood near a creek lined with cottonwood trees, providing rare shade in the desert landscape. Several corrals and a large barn completed the main structures, along with a bunkhouse that Lucas explained was now used for storage, since Manuel preferred to live in a small cabin near the barn. "It's beautiful," Lily said honestly, appreciating the evident care that had gone into building and maintaining the place. "It suits me," Lucas replied simply. Manuel emerged from the barn as they approached an elderly Mexican man with a deeply lined face and bright eyes that crinkled with genuine pleasure as Lucas introduced Lily and Emma. "The señorita wishes to meet the horses, he asked, smiling at Emma's eager nod. "Then we shall introduce her to our gentlest mare first. Mariposa is her name, it means butterfly." For the next 2 hours, Emma was in heaven as Manuel and Lucas showed her the horses, letting her feed and pet the gentler ones. Lily watched with delight as her normally reserved daughter blossomed under their attention, asking intelligent questions and listening carefully to the answers. While Emma continued her exploration of the barn with Manuel, Lucas invited Lily to see the house. It was simply furnished but comfortable, with evidence of both masculine practicality and unexpected touches of refinement. Bookshelves filled with volumes on a variety of subjects, a well-tuned piano in one corner. "You play?" Lily asked, surprised. Lucas shook his head. "It belonged to my mother. Manuel plays sometimes, and I keep it tuned for him." In the kitchen, he prepared coffee with the ease of long practice, and they sat at a solid oak table while Emma's delighted laughter drifted in from outside. "She's a remarkable child," Lucas observed, "quick-minded and brave." "Yes," Lily agreed proudly, "she's always been curious about everything, James." She hesitated, then continued, "James sometimes found it trying. He preferred quieter pursuits." Lucas nodded, seeming to understand what she hadn't said explicitly. Children should be encouraged to ask questions. "It's how they learn about the world." "Is that how you learned, from asking questions?" Lily ventured, curious about his time with the Comanche. A shadow passed over his face, but he answered evenly. "Yes, though sometimes the answers came in unexpected forms. The Comanche have different ways of teaching than white folks." "Do you miss it?" The question slipped out before she could consider its propriety. Lucas was quiet for a long moment, his eyes focused on something distant. "Parts of it," he finally said. "The freedom. The sense of belonging to the land rather than owning it. But I wouldn't go back, even if I could. This is my life now." They were interrupted by Emma bursting into the kitchen, her face glowing with excitement. "Mama, Manuel says I can ride Mariposa if it's all right with you and Mr. Lucas." Lily hesitated, looking to Lucas. "She'll be perfectly safe," he assured her. "Manuel will lead the horse and I'll walk alongside." Unable to resist her daughter's pleading eyes, Lily agreed. The joy on Emma's face as she sat atop the gentle mare, carefully led around the corral by Manuel with Lucas walking vigilantly beside them, was worth any risk. Watching them together, her daughter, and this quiet, complex man, Lily felt something shift inside her. A recognition of possibilities she hadn't allowed herself to consider. The afternoon passed quickly, and soon it was time to return to town. As Lucas helped them into the wagon, Emma asked sleepily, "Can we come back again, Mr. Lucas?" His eyes met Lily's over Emma's head, a question in them. "That would be up to your mama," he said carefully. "You're both welcome anytime," Lily replied softly. "Perhaps next Sunday if you're not otherwise engaged." A rare, full smile transformed Lucas's face. "I'd like that very much." Over the following weeks, Sunday visits to the Broken Spur became a cherished routine. Emma thrived under Manuel's patient instruction, gradually learning to ride without assistance. Lily found herself looking forward to these visits with increasing anticipation, savoring the quiet conversations with Lucas as they watched Emma's riding lessons or walked along the creek that ran through his property. She learned more about his past, how he had been captured during a raid on a settlement where his family was visiting relatives, how the Comanche had initially intended to kill him, but had instead adopted him after he showed unusual courage for a child his age. He spoke of his Comanche family with respect, particularly the man who had become his father and who had taught him about healing plants and tracking game. In turn, she shared more about her own life, her love of books and learning, her brief teaching career before marrying James, and her complicated feelings about her marriage. James had been charming and ambitious but ultimately restless, always searching for something just beyond reach. He wasn't unkind, she explained one afternoon as they sat in the shade of the cottonwoods. But he was disappointed, I think, in his practice in our life together. Nothing ever quite measured up to his expectations. Lucas listened without judgment. Some men are built that way, always looking toward the horizon instead of appreciating what's right in front of them. His words resonated with Lily. Yes, exactly. I tried to be what he wanted, but it never seemed enough. It wasn't about you being enough, Lucas said firmly. Some people just can't find contentment no matter what they have. The understanding in his eyes brought unexpected tears to Lily's. She looked away, embarrassed. I'm sorry, it's still difficult sometimes. No need for apologies, Lucas said quietly. Grief doesn't follow any set path or timeline. As summer progressed into early autumn, Lily prepared for the start of the school year. The school board had approved her curriculum, and 17 children had been enrolled, a significant number for a town the size of San Elizario. Lucas helped where he could, building new shelves for books and repairing desks that had fallen into disrepair. His presence in town became less remarkable as people grew accustomed to seeing him with Lily and Emma. There were still whispers, of course speculations about the nature of their relationship, but Lily found she cared less and less about such things. The night before school was to begin, Lucas brought a special gift, a handsome pinto pony that he led right up to the schoolhouse door. For Emma, he explained as the child stared in wide-eyed disbelief. She's ready for her own mount, and Spot here is gentle but spirited just like her. I can't possibly accept such a gift, Lily protested, though her heart warmed at Emma's expression of pure joy. You can and you will, Lucas said firmly. She's earned it with her hard work. Besides, Manuel says the corral behind your house is going to waste with no animal in it. It was true the previous teacher had kept a milk cow, but the small corral had stood empty since Lily and Emma had moved in. Still, it was an extravagant gift. At least let me pay you something, Lily insisted. Lucas shook his head. Consider it payment for the reading lessons. This was another development of the summer. Lucas had confessed that while he could read, he did so slowly and with difficulty. Lily had offered to help him improve his skills, and they had spent many pleasant evenings with books after Emma was asleep. That's hardly a fair exchange, Lily argued. It is to me, Lucas said simply, and something in his voice made further protest impossible. That night, after Emma had finally fallen asleep, still chattering about Spot and all the adventures they would have, Lily sat alone on the small porch of the schoolhouse, contemplating the changes in her life. 6 months ago, she had been a doctor's wife in Missouri, living a comfortable but increasingly hollow existence. Now she was a widow and a teacher in a frontier town, with responsibilities and freedoms she had never anticipated. And then there was Lucas Jensen, a man unlike any she had ever known. A man who spoke little but whose actions revealed a depth of character that humbled her. A man who looked at her with growing warmth in his gray-blue eyes, who treated her daughter as if she were precious beyond measure. A man, she finally admitted to herself, whom she was falling in love with. The realization should have frightened her, but instead it brought a sense of rightness, of pieces falling into place. Whether Lucas shared her feelings remained uncertain. He was careful to maintain a respectful distance, never presuming or overstepping the boundaries of propriety. But sometimes, when he thought she wasn't looking, she caught him watching her with an expression that made her heart race. The school term began successfully, with Lily quickly establishing herself as a firm but fair teacher who demanded excellence from her students. The parents approved of her methods, and even the most reluctant scholars found themselves engaged by her creative approach to learning. Emma, now 6, joined the other first-year students, proudly riding Spot to school each day with Lily walking alongside. The pony proved to be exactly as Lucas had described, gentle enough for a child, but with enough spirit to make riding interesting. Lucas continued his Sunday visits, though now they sometimes began with him attending church services beside Lily and Emma, a development that raised eyebrows at first but soon became accepted. Afterward, they would either visit the Broken Spur or remain in town for a meal at the schoolhouse, where Lucas would often help Emma practice her reading or listen to Lily's stories about her students' progress. It was during one such Sunday in late October, as they sat at the kitchen table after a pleasant meal, that Emma asked the question that had been hovering unspoken between Lily and Lucas. "Mr. Lucas, do you love my mama?" Lily nearly dropped the plate she was carrying to the wash basin. Emma. That's not an appropriate question, but Emma, with a child's directness, persisted. But he looks at you the way Mr. Wilson looks at Sarah when he thinks no one is watching, and you smile different when Mr. Lucas is here. Lucas had gone very still, his eyes fixed on the table. When he finally looked up, his expression was one of careful control. Emma, some questions are best asked in private between grown people. Emma considered this. So you do love her, but you want to tell her without me listening. A strangled laugh escaped Lily as she watched Lucas struggle with how to respond to the child's relentless logic. "Emma," Lily said firmly, "please go check on Spot, make sure he has fresh water." With a sigh of disappointment, Emma obeyed, leaving Lily and Lucas in a silence that hummed with tension. "I'm sorry," Lily finally said, her cheeks burning. "Children have no filter." Lucas rose from his chair and moved to the window, his back to her. For a long moment he said nothing, and Lily feared she had ruined everything. "She's not wrong," he finally said, his voice low and rough. "About how I look at you." Lily's heart stuttered in her chest. "Lucas," he turned then, his expression more vulnerable than she had ever seen it. "I've been trying to find the right time, the right words. It seemed too soon after your husband's passing, and I'm not the kind of man most women would choose." Lily took a step toward him. "What kind of man do you think I would choose? Someone more educated, more refined." His jaw tightened. "Someone without my past." "Your past is part of what made you the man you are," Lily said softly. "The man who saved my daughter's life, the man who gave us a home and purpose when we had nothing, the man who—" She took a deep breath. "The man I've grown to love." The words hung in the air between them, impossible to take back. Lucas's eyes widened, a mix of disbelief and hope crossing his face. "Lily," he breathed, her name a question and a prayer. She closed the distance between them, reaching up to touch his weathered cheek. "Emma was right about another thing. I do smile differently when you're here, because you make me happier than I've been in a very long time." Lucas covered her hand with his own, turning his face to press a kiss to her palm, a gesture so tender it brought tears to her eyes. "I love you," he said simply. "Have since the moment I saw you tending to Emma with such fierce devotion, even when you were exhausted beyond measure." And then he was kissing her, gently at first, then with growing passion as she responded in kind. His arms encircled her waist, drawing her closer, and Lily felt as though she had finally found home in this most unexpected place. A giggle from the doorway broke them apart. Emma stood there, grinning triumphantly. "I knew it, you do love each other." Lucas laughed, a full, rich sound that Lily had rarely heard from him. "Yes, Miss Emma, it appears we do." "Does this mean you'll be my new papa?" Emma asked hopefully. Lily blushed furiously. "Emma, that's not something we've discussed. Would you like that?" Lucas asked seriously, crouching down to Emma's level. "If someday I asked your mama to marry me and became your papa," Emma nodded emphatically. "Very much. You make Mama happy, and you taught me to ride, and you never tell me to be quiet when I ask questions." Lucas smiled, his eyes suspiciously bright. "Those are good reasons." He glanced up at Lily. "What do you think, Mama? Might you consider such a proposition someday?" Lily felt tears spill down her cheeks, happy tears, the kind she had thought she might never shed again after James's death. "I think," she said carefully, "that someday might be sooner than you think." The weeks that followed were filled with a joy Lily had never expected to find again. Lucas courted her properly, with the blessing of the town's minister and under the watchful eyes of the community. There were some who disapproved, those who whispered about his years with the Comanche or the inappropriateness of Lily remarrying so soon after her husband's death. But their voices were drowned out by the many who had witnessed the genuine care between Lucas and Lily's family. Mayor Thornton, representing the school board, gave his official approval. "Teacher or not, Mrs. Vaughn, you deserve happiness, and Jensen's a good man no matter what some folks say." In late November, with the first frost painting the desert landscape in silver, Lucas formally asked Lily to marry him. They sat before the fireplace in the schoolhouse, Emma already asleep in her room, as he presented her with a ring, not a diamond, but a simple band of silver inlaid with turquoise. "It was my mother's," he explained. "The only thing of hers I have left besides the piano." Lily slipped it onto her finger, marveling at how perfectly it fit. "It's beautiful, Lucas, and yes, I will marry you." They decided on a Christmas wedding, small and simple, with only the townspeople who had become friends in attendance. Manuel would stand as Lucas's best man, and Sarah from the general store would attend Lily. As the day approached, Lily found herself reflecting on the strange path that had led her to this moment. If the stagecoach hadn't stopped in San Elizario, if James hadn't fallen ill, if Emma hadn't contracted the same fever, any change in these tragic events would have led her elsewhere, away from the happiness she had found with Lucas. "You ever think about how strangely life works?" she asked Lucas one evening as they sat on the schoolhouse porch, watching the sunset paint the desert in gold and crimson. "How the worst moments can lead to the best ones," Lucas nodded thoughtfully. "The Comanche have a saying, the eagle sees the snake only when it flies closest to the ground. It means that sometimes we must descend into darkness to find what we truly seek." "That's beautiful," Lily murmured, "and true." He squeezed her hand gently. "When I found you and Emma that night, I was just doing what needed doing. I never imagined it would lead to this, to finding a family of my own." The wedding day dawned clear and cold, with a crystalline blue sky that seemed to stretch forever above San Elizario. The small church was decorated with pine boughs and red ribbons, and candles glowed in every window. Lily wore a simple dress of deep blue that Sarah had helped her make, with a matching ribbon in her upswept hair. Emma, practically dancing with excitement, wore a smaller version of the same dress and carried a small bouquet of winter blooms that Manuel had somehow coaxed into flower in his small garden. As Lily walked down the aisle toward Lucas, who stood tall and proud in a new black suit, she felt none of the uncertainty that had marked her first wedding. This time, she knew with bone-deep certainty that she was choosing the right path, the right man. The minister spoke of commitment and love, of building a life together through good times and bad. When he pronounced them husband and wife, Lucas kissed her with a tenderness that brought tears to her eyes and applause from the small congregation. The celebration afterward was held at the saloon, which had been transformed for the occasion, with more decorations and tables laden with food contributed by nearly every family in town. There was music and dancing, with Manuel revealing an unexpected talent on the fiddle and Mr. Wilson demonstrating surprisingly nimble footwork for a man of his size. Through it all, Lucas kept Lily close, his hand often finding hers, his eyes frequently seeking her face as if to reassure himself that this happiness was real. Emma flitted between them and the other children, her face glowing with the joy of the occasion. Late in the evening, as the celebration continued, Lucas led Lily outside for a moment of quiet beneath the star-filled sky. "Happy?" he asked, his arms encircling her waist. More than I ever thought possible, she answered truthfully. And you, I have everything I never knew I wanted. He kissed her forehead. A wife, a daughter, a family. Over his shoulder, Lily could see Emma watching them through the window, her small face pressed against the glass, a wide smile revealing the gap where she had recently lost her first tooth. She adores you, Lily said softly, as do I. Lucas followed her gaze and smiled. The feeling is mutual, though I suspect she'll still ask more questions than I can answer, Lily laughed. That's part of her charm, indeed it is. He turned back to her, his expression growing serious. I want you to know that I'll always do my best by both of you. I can't promise that life will always be easy, but I can promise that you'll never face its challenges alone again. Nor will you, Lily replied, reaching up to touch his face. That's what family means. After the wedding, Lily and Emma moved to the Broken Spur. The school board agreed that Lily could continue teaching, riding into town each day with Emma. The small house that Lucas had once occupied alone quickly transformed under Lily's touch, becoming a true home filled with books, music, and laughter. Spring brought new life to the ranch foals in the corral, wildflowers carpeting the desert, and the news that Lily was expecting a child of her own. Emma received this information with characteristic enthusiasm, immediately peppering them with questions about when the baby would arrive and whether it would be a boy or a girl. A brother would be acceptable, she announced grandly, but a sister would be better for playing with dolls. Lucas laughed and swung her into the air. We'll take whichever the good Lord sends us, Miss Emma. As Lily's pregnancy progressed, Lucas became increasingly protective, insisting on accompanying her to and from the schoolhouse each day. The townspeople watched this devotion with approval, and even those who had initially disapproved of their marriage were won over by Lucas's evident care for his family. In late October, almost exactly a year after Emma had asked her fateful question about Lucas loving Lily, their son was born, a sturdy boy with Lucas's gray-blue eyes and a shock of dark hair. They named him James Lucas Jensen, honoring both Lily's first husband and the man who had become the center of their family. Emma took to her role as big sister with natural grace, proudly helping Lily with the baby and telling young James stories about horses and desert creatures that Lucas had taught her. When Lucas brought home a carved wooden horse for the baby, similar to the one he had given Emma during her illness, the circle seemed complete. Life at the Broken Spur fell into a rhythm of work and love, challenges and joys shared equally. Lily continued teaching, bringing baby James with her once he was old enough. The school thrived under her guidance, with several of her older students going on to further education in El Paso, an achievement that filled her with pride. Lucas's horse breeding business prospered as well, his reputation for quality animals spreading throughout the territory. He gradually added cattle to the ranch's operations, providing further security for their growing family. 3 years after James's birth, they welcomed a daughter, Sarah Elizabeth, named for the kind woman from the general store who had first directed Lily to Lucas when Emma was ill. By then, the Broken Spur had expanded, with a larger house to accommodate their family and additional hands to help with the increased workload. Throughout these years of growth and change, Lily and Lucas never forgot the strange twist of fate that had brought them together: a fever, a desperate mother, and a cowboy who knew the healing ways of the Comanche. Sometimes, on quiet evenings after the children were asleep, they would sit on the porch and remember that first meeting in the small room above the general store. I was terrified that night, Lily admitted once. Not just for Emma, but for our future. I couldn't see a path forward. Lucas took her hand, his thumb tracing the silver and turquoise ring she still wore. And I never imagined that boiling herbs for a sick child would lead to all this. Do you ever regret it? Lily asked teasingly, taking on a widow and a questioning child. Lucas pulled her close, his lips finding hers in a kiss that, even after years of marriage, still made her heart race. Not for a single moment, he murmured against her mouth. Not for a single moment. And in the vastness of the Texas night, with the desert stretching to the horizon and the stars burning overhead, Lily knew that this unexpected life, this family forged through hardship and healing, was exactly where she was meant to be. In Lucas's arms, in the home they had built together, she had found not just shelter from the storm, but the courage to dance in the rain.